CJ Peterson, and welcome to The Journey is Real. We talk to real people with real passions who share a real portion of their heart. Today, my guest is Terrie Gardner, and we titled her podcast, The Secret of Addiction Hiding Behind the Stigma. Thank you for coming on today, Terrie.
Thank you for having me.
Your story is a really heartbreaking one. So again, I want to thank you for the courage of stepping up and sharing it and wanting to talk about it. Not a lot of people want to discuss this particular topic. They kind of want to tuck it into the closet and leave it there and just hope nobody notices. So I'm thankful that you're willing to come on and talk about it. Would you please share a little bit of your story for those who are listening with us?
I will. And you're right. It's a very heartbreaking story. And part of the heartbreaking part is that it's an ongoing story in families across the world. Mm-hmm. And I am not alone in the walk that I took for several years. My story talks about a drug addiction from prescribed painkillers mm-hmm. that my husband at the time was given through several doctors several times over a span of years. And he had several injuries and he had several pains in different areas that were being treated at different times. And because of all the medication that he was being prescribed, he formed an addiction. Mm-hmm. And the addiction lasted for several years and ultimately was responsible for his death.
Okay. So how did you work with it and process it and everything? Because this is the love of your life who's going through this.
Yes.
How did you process all that?
Well, I didn't. During the time, I struggled. My family struggled because we did not know how to deal with it. Mm-hmm. This was 17 years ago, and 17 years ago, this was not discussed openly. Mm-hmm. You did not hear about normal, everyday people, neighbors, church members, friends. You didn't hear that they had a problem with prescription medications and accidental overdoses. What you did hear about were the pop culture, the actors, the musicians. Those are the people that you would hear about. And then, of course, you also heard about the drug addicts that live on the street and that are hiding behind dumpsters and in alleys. But in reality, that is not typically who is addicted to pain medication. Mm-hmm. Typically, the people that are addicted to those medications are, as I mentioned, your everyday people in all walks of life that you would have absolutely no idea had a problem. Mm-hmm. And so dealing with it was a struggle because I didn't know who to talk to. I had no experience with it whatsoever. I had no support group that I could go to because I didn't know where to find it. Mm-hmm. And I did not know who could actually help.
Have you found areas now for those who are listening who may have somebody in that position or they themselves are in that position? Have you found places now that you can talk about?
Absolutely. I can tell you that if you will go online, mm-hmm. everyone has access to online assistance now. If you will go online and just Google in your area addiction mm-hmm. and help, you will come up with someone in your area. But I can tell you that right now, if you're listening and you have someone in your family, or maybe it's you that have a problem, I want you to write this number down. The phone number is 1-800-662-4357. Again, 1-800-662-4357. That is a toll-free number for substance and alcohol abuse. It will help you. They will help you find help that is near you. Mm-hmm. And They will help you if you are thinking, I do not have the money to pay for this. There is help. So please call that number.
Thank you. Now, can you share a little bit more about your story? Because, regarding your journey with your husband before the end of that time. Because in the journeys world, we like to dive into the journey itself. So he had several injuries, he was on pain medicine, and then what happened?
Well, like I said, it was over a, a, a long span of time. Addicts don't typically become addicts in, a month of taking medication. Typically, it is because the medications are continued past the time that you should be taking them. So in my husband's case, he had injuries from his youth that he was dealing with and struggling with. And then he had injuries that came after that just aggravated the already existing injuries. So it seemed like every time he got an injury and he would go back to the doctor, they would not remove a medication, they would just add something. And so now his dosage is increasing. His management is out of control. And after a time, what happens is your body builds up an immunity to the medication. So now what the actual dosage is not helping. So now you take it upon yourself to increase the dosage, because this is going to help me if I increase the dosage. And after time, you keep building it up. And that's what was happening with my husband. And as I said, he had several different medications, and then the mixing of them. And then after a time, he was actually addicted. And the biggest problem that we faced as a family was that he would never admit that he had a problem. He could never come to that place in his life that he had a problem, because his reasoning was, I'm taking what the doctors are prescribing me. And so he could never see it, or he didn't want to. We really are unclear. But as I know you've probably heard many times, an addict will not get help until they realize and admit that they have a problem. And if they never admit that they have a problem, then they're not going to get help. And so it was a struggle for us, because we tried interventions with family members. I brought in my pastor. We had conversations. We had very difficult conversations with him. And again, he never came to that place in his life that he thought he had a problem. And so he continued to get worse. It caused problems where he was unable to hold his job because he could not function. He spent a lot of time sleeping. And I went to work one day and told him goodbye, and it was the last time that I would see him on this side of heaven.
Oh, wow. Shame.
Yeah, it happens quickly, and it was not intentional. And I know that people say, well, someone overdoses. Well, you know what? Sometimes people overdose and it's not on purpose. And I know that his overdose was an accident, and he definitely did not mean for that to happen.
Right. And if he thought he was following the doctor's orders, then he just didn't realize it. Now, did his personality and stuff change? I mean, especially when you're trying to do these interventions, I would imagine that would probably start to irritate him if he didn't think he had a problem. So how did you handle that?
Well, it's interesting. His personality was always very quiet, laid back, that really was slow to anger. And so he actually did not ever become angry or irritated with any of us that were talking to him. He just kept saying, I'm doing I'm taking what I've been giving by the doctor. So that was always his go-to statement.
Mhm.
And so no, he did not get angry. Um, he listened. He just could not accept that he did have a problem.
Right. Well, you're not only talking about it, you've also written a book about it. Could you tell us a little bit about the book that you have written?
I have written a book, and it's called Landslide: A Story of Faith, Hope, and Love. It is a faith-based book because I am a Christian,
Mhm.
and I know without a shadow of a doubt that I would never have come through the experience and the struggles with the situation had it not been that God was walking side by side with me every single step of the way. And so it is a faith-based book. It talks about from the very moment that my husband and I met, and what a wonderful person and man he was, and and he died, that same wonderful person, but we lost the man that he was.
Mhm.
And so it talks about that. It's a very honest book. It talks about some of the struggles that I went through, most of the struggles I went through watching, not being able to do anything,
Mhm.
the anger that I felt, the resentment that I felt. It also talks about some financial struggles that we dealt with that were very difficult. And it's a very open, raw, honest look into the life of a family that is dealing with addiction
Mhm.
and how we kept it to ourselves. We did not share. No one around us knew what we were dealing with, at least to the extent that we were dealing. We did not tell anyone.
What would you do different now, looking back? Is there anything you would change?
Yes. Looking back, I, I I beat myself up for several years that I felt I let my kids down. That I should have done something to help my kids through this. I should have gotten them help. I should have found some kind of a support group. But then I realized there really weren't that many available at the time. And as I mentioned earlier, I had no idea where or how to find them. What would I do differently? I probably would have pushed a little bit harder on the tough love side.
Mhm.
Maybe I would have followed through on some of the things that I said I was going to do if something didn't change.
Mhm.
And that's probably what I would do differently.
Okay. Now, nowadays, there's a lot more, many more resources for people
Yes.
facing this and going through this. But so I'm understanding basically you couldn't do much with your husband because your husband was basically in denial.
Yes.
But you could have helped your kids a little bit more. Is that my understanding?
I think that I probably could have.
Mhm.
I think that probably one of the biggest things that I would do differently with my children is that we would have sat down as mother to child and talked about the actual problem
Mhm.
more. And instead, we knew it was happening. We just didn't talk about it. Everyone in my household knew there was a problem. There was no denying that. But we kept it hidden
Mhm.
because there's such a stigma about addiction. And I think that we were all trying to protect my husband
Mhm.
from being judged and being labeled.
Mhm.
And that's probably why we kept it. And I discussed that in my book as well, that it was hidden, and it was a device that we created within our family to protect him. And we did that for years, and we did that for years even after his death.
Well, on this end of things, just know that you're not, you know, don't beat yourself up, because when you're going through it, you don't always know what to do. And as we talked about before, back then, the resources just weren't there that are here now.
Right.
So, don't beat yourself up. You did what you could do. You did the best you could. I was asking the question for those who are going through now, hindsight being 2020, what is it you would change? So don't beat yourself up on any of that. Please don't take it that way. I just wanted to know, for those going through it now, what would you change? So basically helping the kids, because the kids see what's going on. They can't always process what's going on.
Right.
So
Right.
now, where
And
do
and
they,
I would say that now, because resources are so available,
Mhm.
if you are dealing with this within your family, you need to find those support groups. And when your children say, I don't want to go, they need to go anyway,
Mhm.
because they need to have an outlet. They need to be able to talk about it to someone, and they may not talk about it with you. So that would be what I would say to anyone dealing with it now, and not just the kids. If you're married to someone that's addicted, if you have a child that is addicted,
Mhm.
you have to talk to someone. And there are so many resources out there now to be able to do that. And so I strongly suggest, please reach out and find those support groups. Talk to your pastor,
Mhm.
talk to your church members, talk to your friends. Don't try to go through this by yourself, because I'm telling you, it makes the struggle harder.
Mhm. Now, where can people find Landslide, your book?
They can find it on Amazon.
Awesome. And where can they find you online? And, if they have questions, or, are trying to figure out where to go or what to do next, how do they find you online?
I have a website,
Mhm.
and it is lifestream.com. LIFESTREAM publishing.com.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for sharing your story today, Terrie. We have about 3 to 5 minutes left. Is there anything you'd like to add?
I'm just going to say that I do have the book that is available on Amazon. If you know someone, maybe it's not even a family member, maybe it's a friend or a child of a friend, buy this book for them,
Mhm.
and let them read for themselves, because it shows a side that is rarely discussed, and that's the side of the family.
Mhm. Well, you're very courageous for sharing your story and coming on today. And I want to thank you again for that. And we honor that story, and we honor you for doing that. So thank you so much. It is something that not a lot of people do talk about. But on the Journey is Real, there's a lot of times we like to knock down those walls and those stigmas and just take it head on. So people know and realize that, they're not alone in this journey. Somebody has walked through it before, and they can help you. You can reach out to, like NA, Narcotics Anonymous. You can reach out
Right.
to the one for family members. Is that Al-Anon?
Yes.
Al-Anon. You can reach out to your church if you're part of a church family. The church family is there for you. We are a family for a reason. And the church is not necessarily a building, but it's the people. So, reach out
Absolutely.
to, your other family members. Reach out to your real family members. Say, hey, I need a little bit of help. That's what family is for, whether it's blood or whether it's a close person that you're close to who is like family. That's what they're there for, to help carry and encourage us when we can't walk anymore. But don't wait until it's that point. Sometimes people wait till it's too late or really close to too late before they do anything. If you see a pattern, you need to stop it early. Try to take it on before it becomes a bigger pattern or a bigger problem. I'm really sorry for your loss. That's brutal. I don't know what I would do without I call him Super Hubby. So I'm not sure what I would do without Super Hubby. So again, we do honor and thank you for coming on and sharing your heart. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for letting me come on and tell this story.
Not a problem at all. Like I said, we love to share stories behind the journeys, allowing people to take the masks off and to look beyond, what social media puts forward. So again, you can find out more about Terrie at lifestreampublishing.com. That's lifestreampublishing.com. Her name is Terrie Gardner, and the book is Landslide. What's the rest of it?
A Story of Faith, Hope, and Love.
Landslide, A Story of Faith, Hope, and Love on Amazon. You can get it today. And thank you guys for watching The Journey is Real, where we talk to real people with real passions who share a real portion of their hearts. I'm CJ Peterson of cjpetersonwrites.com. Until next time.